All microphones should be on mute for the initial presentation. You can also switch off your camera if you prefer. Should there be any connection issues during the course of the webinar, you're advised to first check your speakers. Failing that, you're able to contact the organisers directly to receive the presentation. Serafin Passos Vidal from COSLA's Brussels office will now begin the meeting. Hi, Serafin, sorry, you need to unmute your microphone to talk first. Thank you.
Sorry. This is Serafin here. I am Serafin Pathos. I am the head of the European International Function of COSLA, which is the Convention for Scottish Local Authorities, as some of you no doubt know. This is just to say hello and to be grateful for the many of you who decided to join this first activity. We are delighted to be supporting this European City Facility project in the UK. You might wonder why a Scottish organisation is doing a UK-wide event. It's very simply because COSLA has been for almost a decade supporting a structure or national supporting structure for Scotland on the Common of Mayors, and we have also cooperated with our European international networks like CMR, the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, in supporting local authorities in Scotland develop sustainable energy and climate plans that you know, as some of them have no doubt. But of course, this is a UK-wide event, and because we were the only supporting structure from local authority perspective in the UK, we're very pleased that Federating thought would be good partners to facilitate this activity for the EUCF project. And of course, we want to be grateful as well of our colleagues from Wales, England, Northern Ireland, WLGA, LGA, and ILGA for helping disseminating this activity. This is, just to conclude, part of a wider international engagement work that COSLA does and will continue doing, including, for instance, the Global Common of Mayors, which there's a new phase soon, as well as wider climate work. Only last 2 weeks ago, or no, sorry, a week ago, our spokesperson, Councillor Heddle, which we wanted him to come to this meeting, but in the end it was not been possible because of a clash, was meeting virtually meeting ministers and mayors from all over the world, virtually, of course, from Seoul to Argentina, as we are preparing a major activity on the run-up and during the COP26 in Climate Summit in Glasgow next year. So if you are interested in this wider aspect of our work, we are happy to have those conversations after the meeting. But for now on, thank you for joining us, and we are looking forward for the start of this project. Thank you. Over to you, Judith.
Okay, thanks, Serafin. I'll also take the opportunity to extend a very warm welcome and thank you to all the participants today. So my name is Judith McGregor, and I'm the EU officer at the Convention of Scottish Local Authorities. So COSLA is going to deliver this webinar today with the UK expert, Dr. Catherine Maybe. As Serafin mentioned, COSLA is the Covenant of Mayors supporting organisation in Scotland, and consequently we became aware of the European City Facility that will allocate 200 grants of up to €60,000 to European municipalities to develop investment concepts in energy efficiency. A number of our members in Scotland have developed climate and energy plans, either as part of the Covenant of Mayors or otherwise, so COSLA was keen to present this opportunity intended to help make plans operational and develop the capacity of officers to seek investment. As Serafin also mentioned, we're grateful to the local government associations in England, Wales and Northern Ireland for assisting in contacting UK local government more widely, and we have a number of officers from all 4 UK nations registered to attend today. We are also happy to have with us on the call our European partners from the core management team, Federating. The European City Facility is funded by the last programming period of the EU Horizon 2020 Framework Programme for Research and Innovation. Of course, we have concrete assurance that UK local authorities remain eligible and their grant agreements in force for the duration of the project. In an effort to be as practical as possible, the agenda for today is very straightforward. After introducing the European City Facility and the main outcome, the investment concepts, the UK expert Catherine will take us through the application and evaluation stages. The webinar is due to last 1 hour. I will also add that this webinar relates to the first call, with 3 more rounds planned until 2022. Our purpose today is to provide the information you may need to apply for this first call. So, in summary, the European City Facility is an initiative to support local authorities and their groupings develop investment concepts and accelerate investments in sustainable energy. It will do this by way of tailor-made, fast and simplified financial support and related services to enable local authorities to develop their investment concepts. In total, €12 million will be allocated via cascade funding across Europe. Analyses show that in order to meet the EU's climate and energy objectives and the 2030 targets, mass investment will be required, which alone can't be delivered by the public sector. Local authorities play a key role in the sustainable energy transition and have great potential to facilitate investments in energy efficiency and renewable energy. They are also able to pull smaller projects into larger investment portfolios and mobilise the financial resources required for the energy transition. Although the potential is immense, there can be fundamental obstacles for local authorities. In many cases, there is a lack of credible, robust and sufficiently mature investment concepts. However, such concepts are an initial step to accessing different sources of funding. It is in this context that the European City Facility has been designed by European city networks to support local authorities develop these investment concepts. So the facility aims to address 2 fundamental overarching barriers. Firstly, the limited financial and legal capacity of local authorities to transform long-term energy and climate strategies into appropriate investment concepts, and a lack of aggregation of fragmented smaller projects and thus lack of attractiveness for the financial sector. So some of the common EU-wide barriers to financially sustainable energy projects at the municipal level include limited human resources and capacity, lack of experience in development packages and reluctance to invest in project preparation. If you have identified such challenges at local level, the facility may be relevant for you and your local authority. So the ultimate objective of the European City Facility is to build a substantial pipeline of sustainable energy investment projects across local governments in Europe. And it would like to deliver at least 225 investment concepts in the EU and trigger more than €320 million worth of public and private investment. The key aims of the facility are to provide hands-on technical, legal and financial expertise to develop credible and scalable investment projects, build the capacity of at least 450 public authority staff to develop project pipelines. It will support officers by providing tools, networking and knowledge transfer opportunities to assist with implementation. It also will facilitate access to private finance, EU funding streams and advisory services, especially for small and medium-sized cities and local authorities. And ultimately, we want to use the investment concepts and the knowledge generated to reach out to more than 9,000 cities and communities, encouraging replication and further action across Europe. As the facility develops, the aim is to increase the local experience and capacity of officers to use the financial or innovative financial options, which may include the blending of funds, financial schemes, procurement and climate mainstreaming in budgets. The main supported projects are within the field of energy efficiency, energy supply, energy infrastructure, and enabling infrastructure. So in addition to this capacity building, develop a community of practice and providing financial support, the facility will of course also provide EU added value. It offers beneficiaries the chance to participate in EU-wide activities such as peer-to-peer exchanges at different steps of the process and participate in matchmaking events. These matchmaking activities will bring together beneficiaries with energy agencies and the investor community. Every attempt has been made to make the application as straightforward as possible. It is two-stage and involves an eligibility check before a full application is completed. It is hoped that this will save valuable time of officers. Applicants will be supported to apply for the facility in the beginning, and beneficiaries supported in the designing and leveraging of the investment concept. Councils do not need to be cities, have mayors, nor minimum inhabitants, nor be part of the Covenant of Mayors currently. What you will require is a politically approved action plan on energy and climate of similar ambition and in line with EU targets. So at minimum, it should include climate and energy targets for 2020 and correspond to the EU 2020 targets of 20% emission reduction by 1990, 20% of energy from renewables, and 20% improvement in energy efficiency. We do actually anticipate some queries about the equivalence of plans, but we are of course happy to look into this. You will also, to apply to the facility, you will also require a NUTS 3 territorial classification code, which we recommend you check with ONS or Eurostat. Successful applicants of the first call would be able to start their activity no later than 4 months after being notified that the application has been successful. So before Katrin, the UK expert, discusses what applicants need to do to apply, we have a couple of slides on the main intended output of the facility, the investment concepts. So the grants that are available are not meant to directly finance local investments. Rather, they should be used to access the services needed and to develop an investment concept. So the investment concept is a document which translates an investment project idea into financial language in order to mobilise financing for its realisation. It provides investors and financial institutions with the necessary information to assess an investment project. Specifically, the grant will support the activities required to develop the investment concept, such as feasibility studies, legal and financial analysis, and the coordination and organisation activities. These can be delivered in-house or subcontracted to external experts. So an investment concept template is provided to support participants. The template, which is shown on the screen, asks for a description of the planned investment project, detail on promoters and local stakeholders, a legal analysis, economic and financial analysis, and an investment roadmap. Some potential investors, such as the European Investment Bank, have been consulted in the development of the template. Beneficiaries are asked to develop the investment concept within 12 months from grant agreement signature, and the resulting investment concepts should represent an initial step towards a fully fledged business plan. So yeah, with the grant, the beneficiaries will be supported to develop the investment concept and essentially generate the information that's shown on the screen. Upon signing the grant agreement, beneficiaries receive 70% of their allocation. After validation, where certain quality criteria are met, the remainder is granted. We consider this in COSLA, this low audit risk, to be a particularly attractive element of the facility. After the concept is developed, a 2-year monitoring period then begins. Beneficiaries agree to submit a report in case of not completing the investment concept within the foreseen period. So throughout the process, beneficiaries will be supported to identify possible sources of investment throughout. However, in the main application, you are asked to consider this. The intent is that beneficiaries can access any type of funding, including banks, private investors, domestic programmes and crowdfunding. Of course, the funding landscape will look very different for UK local authorities at the end of the year, and most EU sources of investment, such as the European Investment Bank, will not be available. As we move forward with the facility and also with negotiations on the UK and EU's future relationship, appropriate options for UK local authorities will be mapped on an ongoing basis. As a non-EU member, it will also be important to consider avenues presenting themselves at international level. The Covenant of Mayors has been working on financing for local climate and energy plans for many years. Its resources can be a good source of initial ideas for local energy financing, and we would recommend that to you. So as I mentioned, there will be 4 calls for applications running until spring 2022. The first call is open now. It opened on May the 25th and will remain open until the 2nd of October, 5 PM Brussels time. On the screen you can see an indication of the timescale for the 3 other calls. This might be worth keeping in mind if you have a climate and energy plan currently in development and awaiting political approval. This is ultimately a competitive selection process where you will be evaluated on investment size and energy savings. However, as you can see, it is intended that unsuccessful applicants will be able to apply again. Unsuccessful applications will receive a feedback report of the evaluation and can then seek support on how the application can be improved. Okay, now I'm going to hand over to Katrin, the expert in the UK, who is going to discuss a bit more in detail about what's required of applicants.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Thanks, Judith. I'm afraid I'm going to ask Judith to manage the slides, so apologies for me having to interject every so often to say next slide. I'll just introduce myself a little bit first. I'm an independent consultant. I'm based in Wales, and I've spent many years working on climate and energy strategies and practical energy projects too, in partnership with UK local authorities, and particularly in that tricky stage of going from the strategic level to practical programs to implement strategy. So that's my background, and my role in this initiative is that I'm your contact point here in the UK. So there's a help desk also in Brussels for the project, but obviously with every country in the EU plus the UK involved in this, they really need national contact points to do as much as possible to support them. And any queries that you have throughout the whole process, you can come to me. I will have a dedicated email address for the project, which we'll give you at the end of the presentation, and it's also, you can find it on the website as well. I might not know the answers to all of your questions the first time that I've asked them, but the point is that we will be collecting, it's a pilot, and we'll be collecting any queries, and we'll save questions and answers on an FAQs, on a frequently asked questions on the website as well. So hopefully things will get more and more straightforward as we go through the project. But the whole thing has been designed to be as simple and as accessible as possible. So we hope that you'll find that that's the case. Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to go through now essentially what the application procedure involves. So there are 2 steps. First one is a simple eligibility check, which really avoids you wasting your time if you don't fit the key requirements. So the first thing you do when you go onto the website is to run through this eligibility check, and I'll show you that what that involves in a minute. And once you've done that, you can then go through to the full application, and your application will then be checked against 5 criteria by an independent evaluation committee, and if it's successful, you then move on to the grant agreement, all really quite streamlined in the way it's going to run. So I'm going to go through these different stages in a little bit more detail now. Next slide, please. So the eligibility check, essentially, there are very, very obvious questions. The first one, are you a municipality or a local authority, or a grouping of municipalities or local authorities? We had a little bit of a discussion around what a municipality means in the UK context, and come to the conclusion that really for this initiative you need to be bigger than a parish, community or town council and smaller than a devolved country or region. So unitary, county, district, boroughs, metropolitan boroughs, this strange, confusing mixture that we have in the UK, but that's the level we're talking about. So local authorities, and you can group together as several of these to make an application if you want to. Secondly, you must be in the EU 27 member states or the UK. Thirdly, you must have what's called a CAP or a CCAP or equivalent. These terms refer to the Covenant of Mayors initiative. If you're not familiar with that, I'll explain just what that means. A CAP stands for a Sustainable Energy Action Plan, and it's the implementation tool for signatories that joined the Covenant of Mayors before October 2015. And it's just your local Sustainable Energy Action Plan for the territory of your local authority. And it must have a reasonable ambition, must be aiming to at least reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20% by 2020, and have built-in monitoring to do that. So that if you have your own Sustainable Energy Action Plan at local level and it's at least as ambitious as that, then that makes you eligible. And then the other strange term, the CCAP, is the slightly more developed version post-October 2015 that the Covenant of Mayors has used, and it stands for Sustainable Energy and Action Plan, and it's the implementation tool since October 2015. And the minimum ambition we're talking about there is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 40% by 2030. Also including adaptation, also including alleviation of energy poverty, and again, full monitoring. So that's the kind of broad description of what a CAP or a CCAP is, and what your local plan should be roughly equivalent to. So it's fairly flexible, but I think that will be familiar to UK local authorities because of the many variations of local energy and climate action planning that we've become accustomed to over the years. And then the next eligibility criteria is you need to be able to provide proof of political commitment to develop the investment concept. And so really it means your political leader in your area, the leader of your council or the mayor, a signed document to say, yes, we support that you're doing this work. And then finally, a commitment to the EUCF monitoring period for 2 years, which, as I understand, is likely to be fairly light touch, and it's pretty standard to have some kind of requirement like that for any EU funding. So that's your eligibility check, and that's the first thing you do when you go onto the website to look at this application procedure. Next slide, please. So what do you have to submit for the full application? There are 3 sections. The first section is fairly straightforward. It's your identification of the applicant. Most of this is pretty obvious. It's actually I'll go through that detail more on the next slide, I think, because it lays it out properly. So there are 3 sections to the form itself, and then there are 3 supporting documents that you need to provide. The 3 supporting documents are the Sustainable Energy Action Plan, as we've talked about, the letter of support, and a self-declaration form that needs to be signed again by the representative of the local authority or the groupings. So next slide, please. Here we have the detail of the full application form. So section 1, as I said, is fairly straightforward identification. It's the name of the authority, population size, contact person, etc. And then this thing called the LAU or NUTS3 code. Again, that might be something you're very familiar with. In case it isn't, I'll just describe what it is. NUTS is nomenclature of territorial units for statistics. It's not very easy to say. And it's essentially a statistical tool. It's a territorial classification that subdivides the territory of the EU into 3 different hierarchical levels for statistical and planning purposes and analysis. And it's very useful, obviously, in EU policy development. And there are 3 levels: NUTS, NU1, NUTS2, and NUTS3. And the NUTS3 classification corresponds to smaller regions so that you can actually diagnose statistics at that level. And so local authorities come under a subdivision of NUTS3, which is called a Local Administrative Unit, an LAU. Essentially, what you need is simply to be able to give the NUTS3 code and the LAU code for your area. And you can find that on Eurostat website. We put the link here. So if you don't already know it, you can look it up and find it. And it's interesting because it confirms for you statistics about your area. So it's a useful thing to know about if you haven't used it before. So everything else, I think, on that first section, identification, is fairly obvious. The second section, development of the investment concept, obviously this is getting a little bit more complicated. Apart from things like title and how much you're asking for, you need obviously to detail the activities, what you need the grant for. And then two other areas which are really important: governance for the investment concept development. By that, it's really how are you going to manage the project? How do you make decisions about the project? And obviously, if it's a grouping of local authorities, that's a little bit more sensitive and a bit more complex. So it's an important area, and don't skimp on it. It may be blindingly obvious to you, but it won't necessarily be obvious to the person reading the application. And then the final section, again, not to be skimped on, is engagement of stakeholders. And I think with all EU projects, it's an area that is considered very, very important, that to make sure that you've really thought about who are the key actors involved in the action that you're looking at, and that you've engaged them as early as possible, and how you're going to engage them to make sure that the whole thing really is practical. So that's section 2. And section 3 is the implementation of the project, and how you intend to implement that once you have the funding to go ahead. So you need to look at what are the sectors you're targeting, what are the measures, what is the expected size of the investment, how much capital funding you're intending to raise to do this work, and the expected impacts, the key one being energy saving, but also obviously anything else that you can detail: carbon dioxide, social benefits, job creation, fuel poverty alleviation, those things as well. But the key minimum obviously is the energy saving. And then finally, potential for replication and for scaling up. And these are really important because this is really the key objective of the whole initiative, is to try and develop things that can then be scaled up and can have a knock-on, much larger effect. So that's the key things that you need to provide in the full application. Can we have the next slide, please? What kind of activities would you be looking to fund? I think Judith has already described these to some extent. The kind of measures that you'd be looking at is anything that would be helping to implement your Sustainable Energy Action Plan. So really, really broad ranging in terms of sustainable energy measures that you're ultimately looking at. But in terms of the development of the investment project, there are specific areas suggested, such as feasibility studies, engineering analysis, legal analysis, social studies, market studies, financial analysis. So it may not be that the fund is enough to do everything you need, but it needs to be additional to what you've already done, or to what you are able to do with other funds. So the point is, not just to take some money for something that you've done already or you can do without it. It's really to give you that extra bit of support to make this possible. So I've already discussed with a couple of people who said, oh, that might not be enough for the kind of thing I need. That's not really the point. The point is that it fills a gap, but you need to identify very clearly what that gap is and how you want to use it. And the grant is quite flexible. You can use it for in-house staff or for external experts and subcontractors. So that's actually, I think, a huge benefit of this initiative, that you can be so flexible. Next slide, please. A few things to consider if you're looking to apply as a group of local authorities rather than a single one. Very important, obviously, to be clear about how you're going to work together, and who is going to lead. So because that lead applicant needs to sign the grant agreement, receive the grant amount, and obviously have formal arrangements for how that work will be shared and how any funding is shared beyond the lead applicant. So again, that's probably a bit obvious, but it's very important that you do give that detail and think about that detail in advance, and also to be aware that the grant is still only a maximum of €60,000. It's also worth noting that if you can work together as a group of local authorities, and that looks like a good way to do the work that you're planning to do, it will be looked on favourably, because hopefully it means that the money goes even further. So if there was, if you were competing for the last funding slot and there were two projects of equal value, the one which was a grouping would be given priority. So it is looked upon favourably if you can do that. Next slide, please. How will the applications be evaluated? So there are, again, two stages. The first one is simply a check that the 3 supporting documents are all in order. And then the second is an actual scoring exercise with points out of 5 for each of the 5 key criteria. And each applicant will get feedback. So if you don't get through, you will know why, and as long as you're early enough in the project, you'll be able to resubmit to the next call or make improvements. I think we've got another slide with the more detail on the criteria. So yes, I'll go on to the next slide, please. Here we are, more detail on the investment criteria. The first one is the investment size, and this is looking at the level of ambition, obviously in relation to other submitted applications, because it is a competitive process within the region. The EU and UK have been divided into 3 groupings in order to compete for the funds, and that the funding available has been divided into the 3 regions. So you will be competing. Hopefully there's enough interest for there to be competition, and so far it certainly looks like there's going to be. So the level of ambition, obviously they want to see that you're going to be doing a reasonable amount of work and achieving a lot from what you're doing. So being able to bundle and pool investments is looked upon favourably as well. The energy savings to be achieved, obviously extremely important. So the actual amount of investment and the amount of energy savings are 2 separate criteria. Third criteria is the governance structure, to see that that is robust and internal organisation and decision-making processes are in place. Fourth is the stakeholder engagement, which I've already spoken about. And then 5th, alignment with the Eucf Objectives. And just to remind you of what those are, the alignment of the proposal with the ultimate objective of the Eucf is demonstrating the potential to develop a sound investment concept, including estimations of additional impacts and consideration of the investment project's potential for replication and upscaling. I think I'm repeating myself a bit now, but those 5 criteria are the key things that we'll be looking at in terms of how well you score against other applications. Next slide, please. So just to summarise the Eucf journey, you've got the pre-application phase, the application phase, the grant agreement phase, then the investor concept development, and then finally implementing the concept. I think we had a couple of questions already about how long the application and evaluation phase might be. We're hoping it will be a maximum of 2 months from application, from the end of the call, I should say, when this call ends in October, until you finally know whether you've got through, and then perhaps another 2 months to make the grant agreement. So hopefully maximum of 4 months to be able to start the work from the end of the call. Okay, next slide, please. I just wanted to add a few comments about the IT side of things. I think you'll see that it's fairly nice and simple, but I think it's always helpful to have an idea of what this looks like in advance. Like most things nowadays, everything is being done online through the website. So I'll just take you through a few pictures to show you what that looks like and to highlight the key issues. So next slide, please. There are two key intervention points from the IT perspective. If you're looking at the whole project journey, there's the point at which you register as a user, and there's the point at which you submit your application. Next slide, please. So the first thing you would do is to actually do the eligibility check, and we've already described what that involves. And so you do that first, and then you go on to full registration as a user, which is in the next slide, please. Oh, sorry. There's the eligibility check form, which basically shows you what we've already gone through. Thanks, Judith. Yeah, that will do. And then the registration form looks like this, and that simply gives you're then registered as a user and have full access to everything else on the website. Next slide, please. And here you then have access to the user zone on the website, and this is what it looks like. You'll be logging in every time you use it after that. Next slide, please. And this is what the full application form then looks like. And you can download it and work on it offline and then upload it when you've done it. You'll see there's some quite helpful prompts in each section, which describe what they want you to put in there. I think there's probably nothing else much to say about that. It's all fairly self-evident. Yeah, next slide, please. And you see that you're prompted on this one. This is the rest of the application form, and it also shows you the prompts to upload the necessary documents. You can see where there's the red line saying mandatory documents required in order to go ahead. I think it's all very clear and self-evident. Next slide, please. And very important to be aware, once you're registered as a user, you can always ask questions. I think anything on the IT, obviously ask questions direct to the help desk using this query form. Other questions, if you can't find answers on the website, as mentioned, you'd be very welcome to come back to me and discuss things with me as the country contact. I think that's everything. Yep, thanks. I'll hand back now to Judith for a little bit more on the support available, and then we've got a bit of time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, so just before going to questions, we're going to cover the support that's available for the applicants and beneficiaries. So presented on the screen is the support network that's been created by the core management team. In the pre-application phase, you are encouraged to contact the UK expert, and together we're able to look into issues and with you to troubleshoot. But as Catherine said, any IT issues should be sent to the main help desk. I just wanted to add also that COSLA is supporting this initiative in terms of promotion and dissemination. So we will organise further webinars related to the next calls, and we will also host a physical event in Edinburgh in COSLA's main conference centre when circumstances allow. So yeah, I just wanted to emphasise that you do not need to register on the main site to just send an initial query. You can do it just accessing the main European City Facility website. And on the main website, you will also be able to access on an increasing basis the sources and the outputs derived from the initiative and made available by the core management team. So you can see some of the resources that will be made available there. And this is our final slide, and it just shows the contact details for Catherine and for myself. And I just guess I would end by saying that we're really keen for UK local authorities not to miss out on this opportunity. So honestly, please feel free to contact us if we can assist in any way. So with that, I would like to open the floor to any questions. If you'd like to speak, you just raise your hand and I'll invite you to take the floor. When you're given the floor, please unmute your microphone and you can put on your camera if you wish. And you can also ask a question on the chat if you like, and we'll try and respond to as many as possible. Okay, well, I don't see any immediate questions. Maybe people need a couple of more minutes. But I do think I hope it has been quite clear. I think because this is being developed by city networks and by local government professionals, it is quite straightforward. So I guess, oh, I can see Paul is asking a question. Hold on a second. Okay, yeah, I'm going to give the floor to Paul Murphy from Inverclyde Council. And Paul, when you speak, just please unmute your microphone. Paul and Murphy from Inverclyde, did you hear that? Please ask your question if you'd like. Okay, before that, we can see on the chat that, can you just say again the amount of funding available? Yep, so it's maximum €60,000, so what, just over £50,000 will be up to, that's the maximum for each allocation. And we have a second question, which sectors are included in this investment procedures? Catherine, would you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear. It's really any sector within your local authority territory. So anything that you can see as contributing to your sustainable energy action planning. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It could be, it could be housing, it could be commerce, it could be mobility, transport, sustainable transport, it could be public buildings. I think, interestingly, I was actually hoping that we get some examples on the website. I think as soon as we start to get case studies through, they will go onto the website. The core website. Is Mariangela there from Federen? I believe she's on the call.
Hello, yes. Hello, good morning. Yes, you are right. And also, if you go on the slide where you had the application form, we already highlighted some potential sectors like public buildings, new technologies for renewable energy sources, but we don't want to limit the types of projects. So there is also the voice folder where you can submit your proposal that doesn't fit to any of the other mentioned sectors. Of course, as Catherine was saying, they must be covered under the sustainable energy umbrella.
Thank you, Mariangela.
Okay, we've got another question. Would development of a green bond or energy purchase agreement count? Catherine, do you have any reaction to that? But my initial intuition is that yes, it can be eligible.
I believe so. I think, again, you need to show how it's relevant in your local area, but I don't see why that should not fit in with the broad criteria.
Okay, well, I think I'll try one last time to invite Paul, and if not, I will invite Seraphin to make a closing remark. So one last try. Paul, can you hear me? Would you like to take the floor? Just unmute your microphone. Okay. Well, we are coming to the end of the session. So if the call is of interest to you, please go to the eucityfacility.eu website to complete the eligibility check first. Then use the contact details provided to access any support you may need to complete the application. And then I would just like to, before I hand over to Serafin to say a word of close, I would just like to thank you all again for joining us. We do hope it's been helpful and we hope it's interesting for councils, and we wish you good luck in any application.
Thank you, Judith. I'm glad that we have been organizing this and there's been interest from all across the UK, not just from Scotland. This is obviously just the start, and we focus on the practicalities. I think from feedback that we had when in our own discussions where we were preparing for this project, which we always saw as a very useful one, because developing investment concepts is one of these missing links that are always we have identified long ago between developing plans and actually changing reality or changing or delivering those plans. And this is precisely why we thought as soon as the moment we were approached that would be a good opportunity, because that is essentially free money, or is a grant to develop this missing link between plans and investment. But also in terms of what we had, the people we got before this meeting, and that perhaps just to reassure people, the doing this project, it's not related to Brexit or anything like that. Because this is a project financed by the UK already. The UK already paid into the EU budget, and therefore, UK authorities are eligible to participate in this project even after the UK completely leaves the EU, which is expected to happen in December this year. I mean, it has already no longer a member state, but a number of EU arrangements are still applicable in the UK. Well, even if, as I say, even if the case of some people you will be saying no deal Brexit and so on and crisis at the end of the year, that it will be relevant for this project, because the UK has contributed to the EU budget that has financed this project. And if this project lasts 2 years more, is absolutely no effect on any of your activities. So you should be reassured that that is not going to be an issue. Secondly, of course, encouraging colleagues to contact the Dr. Catherine, maybe from which is the expert on this, because there are things that might come up as you develop your project or your application, and we are here for that. And to the extent that Judith and myself can actually be supported in more pedestrian aspects that you perhaps feel too shy to ask today. Don't hesitate to ask. I mean, I remember people might be puzzled about this nuts classification that was mentioned earlier. Well, just it's a little silly thing that we can quickly point you towards things. Of course, for more sophisticated things, Dr. Catherine maybe will be obviously much better point of access. But feel free to get back to us. If there are things that you thought that were worth just asking me. No question is silly, and they can be actually helpful. Even for us, your feedback and your questions are actually useful to know what are the support we can do throughout this project. So therefore, you are more than encouraged to do that. And as I say, we believe there is many opportunities for funding, and there will be more opportunities for funding because of coronavirus on sustainable energy in the UK, and this project can actually help you develop this to put you in a situation where you can actually make real investment projects. And there's it will be a pity that colleagues don't have this opportunity. It's not a lot of money, but it's actually enough, I believe, enough money to actually finance the development of the investment proposal. And without further comment, thank you all of you for coming, for coming virtually, And as I say, don't hesitate to ask Judith or Dr. maybe Catherine, maybe on any specific you might require. Thank you very much.
Judith, if I can just add one thing about LAU.
Sure.
So the platform and so UCF is using the Eurostat table that you can see here. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yep.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are using this table. This one is for UK, which means that everything that is in this column C is eligible and connected with this LAU code. I sent you in the chat earlier the link where you can download this table. Now, I know that for some countries, this table does not include all the municipalities or all the local authorities because every country has its own administration. So if you think that this table does not is not aligned with UK administration, please just send a query to the help desk and we will support you. But otherwise, if you are in this table, you are eligible.
Yes. And as I say, don't hesitate to get back in touch. We can point you to the right direction. It's really, it's less difficult than it looks, all this nomenclature. So happy to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would say, sorry, some people couldn't see the screen there, but I would say that all Scottish local authorities are eligible for this and they should have their codes. And as we said, just contact us if you can't access it. Catherine, would you like to say a word of close and then we'll just close?
Thank you. Yeah, just to say thanks everyone for your time in listening in and just want to encourage you please to give this a go. I think one of the great benefits of this approach is it's been designed to be really simple and easy to use. So it's not a horrible, demanding, exhausting, long-winded application process. It's been designed to exactly to make sure that it isn't. So please give it a go, and if you have any doubts at all, contact me on the email that we've given, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible and give you any help that I can. So do please make use of this opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now end the webinar. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.